She called the cops and screamed, "He's trespassing on HOA property." The sound echoed across the lake as I stood on the dock I built with my own hands. My boots were soaked, my patience thin. The woman yelling wore a sun hat bigger than her head and held a clipboard like it was a sword. She had that look, the kind that says she's in charge even when she's not. The officers hesitated. They looked at her, then at me, then back at the cabins that lined the edge of the water. 23 of them, identical, ugly, sitting right where my forest used to be. "I'm gonna need you to step off this land, sir," one of the cops said, not even sure why. "This is my island," I said quietly, keeping my voice steady. "You can check the deed." Karen, yeah, that's what everyone called her, snorted. "We already did. The HOA owns this now. You didn't pay the maintenance fees." "Maintenance fees? On my island? The one my father bought in 1987 before any of these people even lived within 10 miles of this lake?" I laughed under my breath. It wasn't funny, but it was the kind of laugh that comes right before a storm. She stepped closer. "If you don't leave right now, we'll have your boat impounded and file for trespassing." The cops shifted uncomfortably. I could see it, they weren't sure. Something didn't add up. Behind me, the old boathouse door creaked open. My daughter Emma peeked out, holding the camera we'd set up days ago. She didn't say a word, just gave me a small nod. "We had everything on film." Karen crossed her arms, smirking. "This island belongs to the Lakewood HOA now. You lost it when you ignored our letters." I looked at her clipboard. Fake documents, freshly printed, stamped with a logo I'd never seen before. She thought I was just some quiet guy living off-grid. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I took a step forward, close enough that she had to tilt her chin up to meet my eyes. "Karen," I said slowly, "you just built 23 cabins on federal protected property, and you're standing on the land of a man who used to train land survey units for the U.S. Army." Her smile faded for the first time, and in that silence, even the wind seemed to stop. "Funny thing about maps," I added. "They never lie." Karen blinked, trying to keep her voice steady. "You can't threaten me with military stories, sir. The HOA has every right to develop community property." I almost pitied her. Almost. She didn't realize the depth of the mess she'd walked into. I pointed toward the cabins, brand new wood, fresh paint, expensive fixtures. "You built those without a single legal permit, on an island that doesn't belong to your HOA, your town, or your county." She scoffed, pretending confidence. "You think we'd build here without checking records?" "Please, we consulted city offices," I smiled. "Which city office?" Her lips pressed into a line. "Lakewood Municipal." "Lakewood's jurisdiction ends 3 miles from shore," I said quietly. "This island? It's registered as federal survey land under my family's deed since 1987. That means every nail you put down here is government-level trespass." Her face paled, but she quickly masked it with fake arrogance. "That's ridiculous. You're just trying to scare me." "Am I?" I said, taking out my phone and showing her the screen. The live video feed played. Emma had been streaming everything to a cloud account, including the moment the HOA's trucks ferried supplies across the water. One of the officers leaned over to look. His brow furrowed. "Ma'am, you said you had authorization for this build, right?" Karen waved him off. "Of course I did. My husband handles the paperwork." "Funny," I said, "because your husband emailed me last month begging to buy this island. When I said no, he stopped replying." Her eyes widened. "That's not true." "Oh, it's true." I stepped closer again, lowering my voice. "And now, after your HOA built cabins here, you're trying to erase me from my own land. That's fraud. And if those cabins are generating rental income," I paused for effect, "that's felony-level fraud." The officers looked at each other, uneasy. Karen's fake authority was cracking like glass under pressure. Still, she lifted her chin. "You're bluffing." I just smiled and nodded toward the sky. A low hum started, distant, mechanical. She turned to look. A drone hovered above the cabins, camera lights blinking red. "See?" I said softly. "I document everything." Her confidence finally broke. You can't record us without permission." "Oh, I can," I replied. "Because this is my property." The officers stepped back, whispering to each other. I caught one phrase clearly. "We better call the county office." Karen's face went white, and that's when I saw her glance at the dock, like she was about to run. Before I could say a word, Karen bolted toward the dock. Her heels slipped on the wet boards, but she didn't stop. She was heading straight for the motorboat her crew had left idling. I followed, not running, just walking fast enough to make her nervous. "Ma'am," one of the officers shouted. "Don't leave the scene." She ignored him, fumbling with the boat rope, her hands shaking. "You don't understand," she yelled. "This was all approved. My husband's got friends in the zoning department. They said it was fine." That line, it told me everything I needed to know. I stayed a few feet away, voice calm. "So your husband used his contacts to fake permits and land records?" She froze, realizing she'd just said too much. I didn't mean that," she stammered. "You twisted my words." The officer walked up beside me, his tone serious now. "Ma'am, you'll need to stay until we confirm the property rights," Karen snapped. "You can't tell me what to do. I'm the HOA." That was her mistake. Right there. The drone camera caught every word, every flinch, every panic in her face. Emma zoomed in, catching her shouting at law enforcement. I could see it already. Proof strong enough to sink her entire operation. Still, I didn't gloat. Not yet. I just stood there and let her talk. People like Karen always destroy themselves if you give them enough rope. She finally stopped when the motorboat refused to start. The gas line was dry. I drained it earlier just in case someone tried to escape before we figured things out. She turned slowly toward me, her voice trembling now. "You set me up." "No," I said softly. "You set yourself up the moment you stepped on my land." The officers escorted her back up the dock. She was still muttering, "You'll regret this. You'll all regret this." But I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was watching the sky, dark clouds rolling in fast, thunder echoing across the lake. Storm was coming. Emma came beside me, holding the camera steady despite the wind. "Dad," she whispered, "what if she really has people in the county? What if they cover for her?" I looked down at her and smiled faintly. "Then we'll go above the county." "Meaning?" I pulled a small metal case from my backpack. Inside was a flash drive and a thin folder sealed with a government emblem. "This island isn't just family land," I said. "It's part of a federal survey route used by the Army Corps. Every year I file proof of maintenance under national land protection." Emma's eyes widened. "So the state can't touch it?" "Not unless they want a federal investigation." And just as I said it, my phone buzzed. An unknown number flashing across the screen. I answered, and a cold voice came through. "Mr. Cooper? This is Agent Myers with the Department of Land Affairs. We need to talk about those cabins on your island." The voice on the phone was calm. Too calm. "We've received a report about unauthorized structures on federal survey property," Agent Myers said. "We're sending a team tomorrow morning to assess the damage." I stared at the phone for a second, pretending to think, but inside I was already 10 steps ahead. "That's good," I said. "But just so you know, I've got full video proof and a copy of the original deed. I'm guessing you'll want both." There was a pause. Then, "You sound prepared, Mr. Cooper." "I've had to be," I replied, glancing at the cabins gleaming through the rain. "These people thought they could turn my land into a vacation park." Karen's voice cut through the air again. "You can't just call the feds like that. You think you're some kind of hero?" I didn't even look at her. "No," I said quietly. "I'm just the guy who actually owns this place." The officers had finally gotten her to sit down near their car, though she wouldn't stop yelling about permits, about her HOA rights, about how her husband knew people. The rain came harder now, soaking the wooden decks of her illegally built empire. Emma nudged me. "Dad, what if they destroy the cabins before the feds come?" I gave her a half smile. That would be the smartest thing they've done all week. That night I stayed up by the fire in the boathouse listening to the storm beat against the windows. I could hear hammers in the distance, Karen's crew trying to move supplies before morning. They still thought this was a fight about money. They had no idea what they'd stepped into. By dawn, 2 black SUVs were parked by the dock. The federal team had arrived. 3 agents in dark raincoats, badges clipped to their belts. Karen came rushing out, makeup running from the rain, her voice cracking as she tried to explain herself. "I'm the head of Lakewood HOA. This man is lying. He forged documents." Agent Myers just looked at her, expression unreadable. "Ma'am, please step aside." Then he turned to me. "Mr. Cooper, I've reviewed your file. You were part of the federal survey program from 2002 to 2010. "That's right," I said. "And this land was assigned to my family's trust before I even joined." He nodded slowly. "That matches what we have in our records." Karen froze. "What?" Agent Myers opened his folder, showing a map. This island is not under county or HOA control. It's private trust land, federally documented. Her face went blank, color draining fast. That's impossible. I met her eyes. You built 23 cabins on property you didn't own. You faked permits. You threatened my family. Agent Myers looked at the cabins, then back at Karen. Ma'am, you and your HOA are in serious violation of federal law. You'll need to come with us for questioning. Karen started shaking. You don't understand. My husband said it was handled. Myers didn't even look at her again. Ma'am, please step into the vehicle. As they led her away, she turned to me, rain dripping off her chin. You'll regret this, Cooper. You think this is over? My husband doesn't lose. I watched the SUV doors close. Neither do I whispered. But something about the way she said it stuck with me. Her husband didn't lose, and that meant he wasn't done yet. By evening, the rain had stopped, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than the storm. The cabins stood there like ghosts, empty, wet, and half-finished. The feds had taken Karen, the cops had left, and the lake was calm again. Too calm. Emma was inside the boathouse editing footage for evidence. I sat outside, staring at the water, sipping cold coffee, thinking about her last words. My husband doesn't lose. That line wouldn't leave my head. Around midnight, I heard a boat engine in the distance. No lights, just the low rumble of something moving across the lake. I grabbed my flashlight and walked down to the dock, heart steady but alert. When I shined the light across the waves, I caught a shadow. Long coat, broad shoulders, steering a black speedboat straight toward my island. He cut the engine before reaching shore, drifting the last few feet. Then he spoke, his voice deep and slow. Mr. Cooper, I think we need to talk. It was him, Daniel Harris, Karen's husband. I'd seen his name on all those fake HOA letters, the ones demanding community compliance. Now he was here in person. I didn't move closer. You've got nerve coming here after what your wife pulled. He smiled faintly. She got emotional. She doesn't understand business the way I do. Business? I repeated. You call building 23 illegal cabins a business? He stepped onto the dock, calm as ever. You could have made a lot of money, Cooper. We had investors lined up, luxury lake rentals. All we needed was one signature from you. But you had to be difficult. I clenched my jaw. This isn't about money. It's about ownership. He looked around, then lowered his voice. You think the feds care about your deed? They'll take this land the moment I tell them what's underneath it. That made me pause. Underneath it? He smirked. Oh, you didn't know? There's mineral mapping data under this island. Iron-rich soil. They were going to mine this lake years ago until your family trust blocked it. That's why I wanted it. I felt my stomach tighten. You're lying. He shook his head slowly. You're sitting on millions of dollars worth of mineral rights. And the best part? The government will take it back once they realize you've been holding it without proper survey renewal. That was the first time I felt the ground shift under me. Not fear, but realization. He wasn't just greedy. He was dangerous and smart. He leaned closer, whispering, You can either sell me this island quietly or watch it get taken from you anyway. I met his eyes. You really don't know who you're dealing with, do you? His smirk faded. I filed those renewal surveys myself last year, I said. Every one of them is stamped, signed, and archived with the Department of Land Affairs. You try to move one shovel of dirt here, you'll be facing federal charges. His face went blank, but only for a second. Then he chuckled darkly. You think paper will protect you? He turned, stepping back into his boat. You should have sold, Cooper. You've just made yourself a target. The motor roared to life and he sped off into the fog, leaving only the echo of his threat behind. Emma came running out a moment later, breathless. Dad, who was that? I watched the last ripple fade into the black water. Trouble, I said quietly. The real kind. Because deep down, I knew Karen was just the first wave. Her husband was the storm that followed. I barely slept that night. Every creak from the dock sounded like a boat returning. Every gust of wind made the windows rattle like someone knocking. By dawn, the fog had thickened, hanging over the water like smoke. I brewed coffee and stared at the cabins again, silent, dripping, waiting. Emma came out, rubbing her eyes. "You think he'll come back?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, but not alone this time." Before noon, I was right. 3 black trucks pulled up on the far bank right where the HOA had built their supply ramp. Men in reflective vests stepped out, unloading heavy machinery, drills, survey gear, and chainsaws. Emma grabbed the binoculars. "Dad, those aren't HOA workers." I recognized one of the logos on their jackets, Harris Development Group, her husband's company, the same one that had tried to buy half the lakefront 2 years ago. I walked down to the shoreline, my boots sinking into the wet dirt. Then I yelled across the water, voice steady and clear, "That's private property. You step 1 foot on this island, you're trespassing under federal law." The foreman looked up but didn't stop. "We've got authorization to do an environmental scan," he shouted back. "Signed by the county." I almost laughed. The county has no jurisdiction here. But they didn't care. The machines started humming, gears spinning up. They were really going to do it. Emma pulled out her phone, recording everything. "Dad, should we call the feds again?" I was already dialing Agent Myers. When he answered, I didn't waste time. "They're here," I said. 3 trucks, heavy equipment, claiming county authorization. His tone sharpened immediately. "Stay where you are. We'll dispatch a team." Minutes felt like hours. The machines on the opposite shore roared louder. I could see them positioning a drilling rig near the waterline. They weren't bluffing. They were after the minerals Daniel had mentioned. Then something strange happened. The lead truck stopped and a man stepped out wearing a tan jacket and sunglasses. Daniel. He walked right up to the edge of the dock, grinning like he'd already won. "You really called the feds again?" he shouted. "You're making this worse for yourself." I stepped forward, meeting his gaze across the water. "You're digging your own hole, Daniel." He smirked. "Oh, I'm not digging anything." "You are." I frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" He motioned toward one of the cabins. My heart sank when I saw what he'd done. Someone had spray-painted trespasser across the wall, my cabin. He'd flipped the narrative, trying to make me look like the intruder again. Then I noticed the cameras, news cameras, 2 vans parked behind his trucks, reporters stepping out filming the scene. He'd called the media. Emma gasped. "Dad, they're live streaming this." Daniel spread his arms dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen, this man claims this is his island, but the county says it's disputed land, and we're here to take environmental readings for public safety." He looked right into the camera. "This isn't about money, it's about community protection." Every word was a lie. I could feel the anger rising, but I didn't show it. Instead, I reached into my jacket, pulled out the small metal case, the one with the flash drive and sealed folder, and handed it to Emma. "Upload it," I said quietly. She blinked. "Now? Right now. Full footage. Every document. Send it to the news station's public drive." While Daniel posed for cameras, our feed went live. A perfect split screen. His speech about public safety on one side and our video proof on the other, showing forged permits, illegal construction, and his wife screaming at the cops. The reporters froze. Some turned toward him. He realized it too late. I shouted across the water, my voice cutting through the chaos. "You wanted the world to see, Daniel? Now they will." For the first time, his confident grin vanished, and the sirens from the mainland started wailing again, getting closer. The sound of those sirens slicing through the mist was like thunder. Everyone froze, reporters, workers, even Daniel. You could see the shift in their faces when they realized the feds weren't just coming, they were already here. Black SUVs rolled down the hill toward the dock, followed by 2 marked government trucks. The agent stepped out fast, no hesitation this time. One of them, Myers, was leading, his expression cold and unreadable. "Daniel Harris," he called out, voice echoing across the lake. Step away from the machinery and keep your hands where we can see them. Daniel laughed, trying to keep control of the scene. This is a misunderstanding. We have county authorization to conduct environmental inspections. Myers raised a document from a waterproof folder. That's interesting, because the county just confirmed those signatures were forged. You've been under investigation since yesterday. The camera crews turned instantly, zooming in on Daniel's face. He started to speak, but his voice cracked. You don't understand this man. He tricked my wife. He's not even the rightful. Myers cut him off. Save it for court. The agents moved in. Within seconds, 2 men were cuffing Daniel as his workers backed away, their vests bright against the wet dirt. Karen's SUV, the one they'd brought her in earlier, was still parked by the road. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. I stood still, watching, not saying a word. Years of service had taught me one thing: justice doesn't need a victory speech. It speaks for itself. Emma came running from the boathouse, camera still recording. Dad, they're broadcasting it everywhere, she said, breathless. News stations, social media, everyone's picking it up. Hashtag HOA Island scam is already trending. I couldn't help a small laugh. Guess people finally care about land rights again. Daniel shouted as they led him toward the SUV. You think this is over, Cooper? You can't stop what's coming. That land will never be yours. I stepped closer to him, my voice calm but sharp. You built your empire on lies. Now you'll watch it collapse, one fake permit at a time. He glared at me through the rain-streaked window before the SUV door slammed shut. Myers approached, pulling off his gloves. You handled this right, Mr. Cooper. We've confirmed your ownership. The Harris Group's been laundering money through fake HOA projects for years. Your evidence helped us connect everything. I nodded slowly, letting that sink in. What happens to the cabins? They'll be removed, he said, but not before we document every square foot for the court. Emma looked up at me. So it's finally over? I looked out at the lake. The sun was breaking through the fog now, golden light hitting the surface like glass. Almost, I said, but people like them don't give up easy. They just regroup, she frowned. Then what do? I smiled faintly. We rebuild, but this time we make it clear. Nobody messes with this island again. As the feds packed up evidence, the last of the reporters turned their cameras back toward me. One of them shouted, Mr. Cooper, do you have a statement for the public? I took a deep breath, the kind that comes when the storm finally passes. Yeah, I said. Tell them this. Freedom doesn't mean much if you can't even stand on your own land. And I didn't serve this country to watch bullies take it piece by piece. The crowd went quiet. Even Myers gave a small nod. The lake was still again, and for the first time in months it felt like mine. Really mine. But just as I turned to walk back to the boathouse, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut said answer. I picked up. Silence for a second. Then a familiar voice whispered, You took my husband. You think I'm done? Karen, my grip on the phone tightened. Her voice was calm now, too calm. Not the frantic, desperate tone from before. It was cold, almost steady. Karen, I said slowly, walking away from the crowd toward the edge of the dock. You should be in custody. She let out a quiet laugh. You think they can hold me forever? My husband might be a fool, but I'm not. You've embarrassed us on national television, Cooper. You humiliated my family. I looked out across the lake at the cabins glinting in the distance under the weak afternoon sun. Your family humiliated themselves. You think you've won? She hissed. But those cabins? They were insured, under your property coordinates. Guess who the payout goes to now that they're being demolished by federal order? My stomach turned cold. You falsified the insurance? She laughed again, soft and cruel. You should really read the fine print on your own deed, veteran. Your trust was renewed, sure, but your insurance coverage wasn't. Every structure on that island technically falls under my company's claim. When they burn, I get paid. I froze, burn. That single word echoed in my head. I turned toward the boathouse just as a faint wisp of smoke curled into the air from one of the cabins. Emma, I shouted, running up the hill. Get out. Get to the dock now. She burst out of the boathouse, eyes wide. Dad, what's happening? Fire, I said, grabbing her hand. Someone lit the cabins. By the time we reached the clearing, the flames were spreading fast, accelerant, no doubt. The wind pushed smoke toward the trees. The heat hit like a wall. I could see the orange reflection in the lake. From the phone, Karen's voice came again, low and bitter. You wanted to expose us? Fine. Let's see how much your precious land is worth after its ash. I hung up and tossed the phone into the dirt. Emma, get to the boat. She hesitated. But the cameras, Dad, the footage. It's already in the cloud. Go. We ran through the smoke, coughing, ducking under branches. Sparks rained down around us. I could hear popping from the cabin's glass windows bursting. When we reached the dock, I shoved the boat off and started the engine. The water churned as we pulled away from shore. From the lake, the view was surreal. 23 cabins burning bright, flames reaching for the sky like a beacon. Emma covered her mouth, tears streaking down her face. She did this on purpose. Yeah, I said quietly. But she just made her last mistake. Because the island wasn't just land, it was under federal environmental protection. Setting it on fire meant federal arson charges. I dialed Myers again, voice steady despite the smoke. Agent Myers, it's Cooper. The island's burning. Karen's behind it. I've got her voice recorded on the call. He didn't even hesitate. Get off the water, Cooper. We're dispatching every available unit. I looked back one last time. The fire was spreading toward the old oak at the center, the one my dad planted when I was a kid. For a second, I wanted to go back. But then I saw Emma's face, terrified, waiting for me to make the call. So I didn't. I turned the boat toward shore, jaw tight, heart heavy. The island that had been ours for decades was burning, but this time I wasn't just fighting to protect land. I was fighting to destroy the people who thought they could own justice.